Welcome to your Zoom Friday update. I believe I have all of the board members on there. Do I have everybody?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I believe David Anderson is not.
He will be shortly. He's trying to switch over from another call, so he will be on shortly. You just keep an eye out for him.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. But yeah, I think he's going to be on in a minute, and then I think I've got everybody else. Is Mary Ann on yet? I know she was trying to juggle between another call, so. But we have enough. So when they come on, Patrick, if you could just keep an eye out for David and for Mary Ann, that would be awesome.
Will do.
Thank you. Board members, if I could get a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
Second, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. All in favor? And I'm just good because not everybody's on. I'm just going to say is all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thumbs count too. Any opposed? Perfect. Then on that, I will move on to management update.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday and happy Memorial Day weekend. I want to start with first just a reminder, Town Hall does close at 3 o'clock today. Traditionally, Friday before holidays, we close early, and then Town Hall will be closed throughout the weekend and on Monday, and then we'll reopen on Tuesday morning. So we hope everybody has a really great Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to start just quickly with what we reopened in the first part of May when the governor's stay-at-home orders were released. In our first half of phase one, tennis courts and dog park, and all seems to be going well. We have our monitor checklist, and they're going through and looking at those facilities. Myself, Nikki, Cameron, we're consistently driving through the community and looking at the facilities, and dog park seems to be well with the social distancing and people honoring that and taking care of hygiene going in there. And then same with tennis courts. It seems like the usage there is working fine. We're not really seeing any type of large gatherings on the open areas. Yesterday and throughout this week, we have started to see some graduation events where people are trying to get together more at the pools for graduation. So we just want to continue to remind residents that we're honoring social distancing. We're trying to keep events from a 10 or under for people gatherings, and just try and keep your social distancing at the 6 feet whenever possible. But I'd like Nikki to just jump on and give us a real quick update on how the pools are going.
Good morning, everyone. So in regards to the pools, just from this week, we did hit capacity at Spring Lake as well as North Village. When we do hit capacity, we do have a park monitor or a town hall representative stay at the front gate until the numbers get reduced. Spring Park was almost at capacity as well this week, but as of right now, residents are doing a really good job with trying to maintain the capacity levels.
Let's try first.
Are we all set now? Did we get everybody muted?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Did we lose Nikki?
And
Nikki, I think
I'm still here.
There you go.
Yep, I'm still here. Sorry. And residents are doing a good job during the cleaning hours as well. Every time we go around to clean, sometimes it's a little bit of delay for us to clean since it's 2 people now cleaning. But when we ask it's time to clean, all residents get out promptly. So everyone's doing a great job as of right now at the pools.
Nikki, so how do you know when a pool is at capacity? Because we don't have to here all the time.
So it's either a park monitor driving around, or on the A-frames, we do have our email as well as phone number for town hall. So we did have a resident contact us this week in regards to Spring Lake being at capacity. Once we get that phone call, we're over there within minutes just to ensure that it doesn't go past that capacity number.
And Brian, we're talking like 15, 20 minutes in between the last visit to the next visit. So, and then in between spot check-ins with Nikki, Cameron, and myself. So even if there are over capacity, it wouldn't be any more than 15, 20 minutes of that happening. And it's just a simple head count when we get in there.
No, I'm happy with the answer. I just think it's good to say it out loud so everyone hears it.
Good. Are there any other questions from any board members on pools, tennis courts, open fields, or dog park?
So Steve,
I want to comment. I hear the really well. Thank you, Nikki and team, for everything you guys are doing.
So Steve, this is
Thanks, Debbie.
fair to say that at this point in the game, we've had no issues at all other than minor stuff.
No, I mean, yesterday, I believe either yesterday or the day before, Nikki, you can correct me, but I think there was a graduation group trying to have like a little event at North Village. Nikki's team went and talked to them. They completely understood. So no issues. I mean, I think that people are just learning the new rules as we go along. And when we explain them to them, everyone's been respectful.
One question. I'd like to thank Nikki and Steve and everybody for going ahead and once again making this work. I'm very impressed and happy with the residents overall. Has there been any consideration or review of potentially increasing the furniture at the pool? So I'm not saying to 100%, but has that thought come up at all? I've been noticing, at least at Spring Park, a lot of individuals just kind of setting out their towels and laying out on the pavement. So I don't know if there's something that has been talked about with that.
And at this point in time, we haven't considered that. I was kind of waiting more towards the phase 2 from the governor's office to start moving in that direction, and then we'll look at playgrounds and programming. I think probably the biggest issue, if we put more chairs and lounge chairs out, it's just going to increase the capacity. And those numbers count towards people on the pool deck and the pool counts towards the overall capacity out there. So it's certainly, there's no restrictions from us doing it, but it's up to the board to decide if you want to do it. I would just say at this point in time, we're just kind of on a hold from a management recommendation standpoint until we see the governor's phase 2.
That's completely fair. I just, same as, previous comments, I just want to make sure it's said out loud for everybody to hear.
Sure.
Any other comments from the board? I'll just follow up to Kevin's comment too. I think one of the things that they have, at least for beaches and pools and things like that, most of the information I've heard is that you want to discourage people from laying out. And I think that was the main point you were trying to make too, Kevin, was just, we don't want to encourage the loitering and the laying out. But we definitely want to make sure that people have the ability to get to the pool. Any other comments from any board members? Hand raising otherwise? Perfect. Steve, you want to go ahead and move on to the gym?
Yeah, Vanessa, are there any residents that had any questions on the reopening?
I can open it up. Do I have any hand
I didn't
raises?
see
Or...
any.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody raising their hand or anything either, or any side comments from chat. I think we're good.
Okay. All right, we'll jump into the reopening plan. Patrick, can you put it up on the screen?
One moment.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Patrick. So in front of you, you see our recommendations for reopening of the Spring Park Gym. We are looking first and foremost at a June 1st reopening of the facility. And the reason why we picked June 1st is because the hospital's reopening their gym on June 1st. So to try and keep capacity down and the influx of folks that are going to want to utilize the facilities, we wanted to be able to spread that out to the hospital and to our gym at the same time. But as you can see, the hours of operation is the same as the pool, where we'll be open for 2 hours and then close for an hour. So that we can clean in between. Facility will be open until 6 p.m. And we will clean the facility each morning prior to opening with more of a deep cleaning. And then the initial occupancy when we reopen will be 4 residents in order to maintain proper distancing. And we've looked to make sure we can do one treadmill closed, another treadmill, and then we have the weight area and some of the other open space that can be utilized in there. We will say no trainers or instructors or any guests permitted at this time. It would just be for residents only. And then access will be by reservation only. So we can do booking and ensure that we have your time slot for the 4 people per the 2 hours that are opening. And all that will be run through our RecPro system. We'll take reservations 24 hours in advance, and then residents will be able to reserve a treadmill, the elliptical or weight training for an hour, and they only be able to reserve for 1 hour at a time per day. So to ensure that everybody gets an opportunity to utilize the facility. We will have sanitary wipes that'll be in the facility, and we'll encourage residents to wipe down the facility when they're done, or wipe down their equipment when they're done, not the entire facility. And then just again, continue to use the guidelines, wear the mask where you feel comfortable up to the point where you start working out. There's no expectation that you have to wear a mask while you're working out, unless you're a hardcore working out person that likes to deprive yourself of oxygen while you're working out, but there's no requirements for that. And then be courteous, patient, respectful of our fellow residents, which again, our residents throughout this entire reopening process have done that, but we would ask the same thing. New rules, it's a new world, so just be patient. For monitoring purposes, it will be part of the rotation. The monitors will go by and check on it when they're at the pool. We also have the cameras that we can keep an eye on the facility, and if it gets out of control, we can send somebody there right away. So this is our recommendation for reopening the Spring Park Gym, and we'll open it up for questions.
I'll open it up for the board first, and then open it up for any resident comments. Board? Excellent. Just go ahead, David. You're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just jump in. I wonder why we're doing anything more when we're not. I mean, the governor has outlined his plans, and we're looking for metrics and 2 weeks of decline. In fact, in the last week, both in the county and in the state, we see an increase of new cases, and we see an increase in percent positive. So why would we consider expanding services when the governor's guidance says that we should have 2 weeks of decline?
Well, from a management perspective, the reason why we would recommend the gym opening is because the governor's second half of phase 1 included gyms. So there are multiple gyms that are reopening, including our own Florida Hospital gym here in Celebration, our Advent Hospital gym.
But he's still calling for the consideration that we see, that we follow the downward trend, and we have upward trends.
Yeah, and I think that's strictly the board's decision whether you want to open or not. But there has been a phase 2 or a second half of phase 1 from the governor's office that does allow gyms to be reopened.
I understand. His same recommendations ask us to consider following a downward trend, and we see an upward trend. I know it's a consideration, it's not a mandate.
Thank you,
So
David.
that's what guides me.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. I'll actually say that I appreciate the outline that you have gone ahead and provided. I've been following not just things here in Florida, but everywhere. I mean, to David's point, there has been an increase. However, there's been a significant increase in testing. So we are going to see those positive results come through. We are seeing that things are opening up everywhere. You have Universal, City Walk, the parks, all of it is opening. We are doing a controlled environment, and we are encouraging for health. You know, that's the biggest part of this. One thing that I really appreciate that management added was the June 1st, and they checked with the hospital here. And I think that was extremely intelligent and diligent to go ahead and ensure we're not having an overcrowding. So somebody that is going to work out, well, if they're already part of that gym as well as CROA, it really spaces that out. So I appreciate that. I just as one am comfortable right now.
Any other board members?
I agree with what Kevin said. That'll be my opinion.
I will make a comment really quick. There were 2 different suggestions as we look towards Steve, as we look towards opening for the gym, rotating different hours for cleaning, and then also the reservation for the treadmill. So just something to consider. It's not, just look at your plan and see if that's something that fits in or would be beneficial. So thank you both, Dan and Eileen, for those suggestions. Any other comments from the board? Steve, do you want us to wait to motion for these, or do you want us to motion now, or wait till our board meeting next week?
No, I think you can vote on it now.
Okay.
Well, Vanessa, that was gonna be my suggestion. I mean, do we need to vote now? This is still over a week out. I know they can kind of proceed with getting everything ready that they need. Can you hear me?
I'm losing you, Diana.
Yeah, I know. I think there was some background noise. I mean, we really don't need to vote. I mean, there's not a lot of prep work that has to go into this other than the initial cleaning. Do we need to vote now? Can we watch the statistics and maybe vote next, at our next meeting?
You certainly can. We just wanted to start putting it out in the Friday Flash today. So if it goes out next Friday, that's it's still prior to June 1st, but it's only just a couple days.
This is Mary Ann.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
I'm inclined to lean into what Diana is saying. I would like to see, I mean, it's a really rock and a hard place situation here, because I agree with what David is saying, but I also know there's a lot of pressure and as other things open, and as the hospital reopens their gym, certainly that is going to, that's an influential factor. So I think, though, that giving us a little bit more time to watch this and vote, since it's not immediate and we do have an official board meeting coming up, I would lean into what Diana is saying from my perspective.
And if that's the case, it's not on the agenda for next Wednesday. We might as well just move it to next Friday's agenda and agree on it then. I mean, we did with the pools. We had a weekend prior to opening when you voted on it.
I'm fine with waiting for that. Brian, you got a comment?
No, I'm fine. And whether we do it Wednesday or Friday, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to learn a lot, but there's no harm in waiting.
That'll also, if you at that point in time too, Steve, feel like you want to make any adjustments to the cleaning schedule or anything like that, it also provides some opportunity if you wish to do that.
Sure.
Okay. Any other board member comment? Okay. I don't see anybody else. Any resident comment? And I'll need some help from the fellow board if there's any other resident comments, if you see any hands or anything raising. I don't see anybody.
No.
Okay, perfect. Then let's go ahead and move on to future board meetings, workshop schedule. So one thing that we have all discussed at one point in time, and especially during emails through the board, is how do we want to handle our going back to a business as usual type schedule? I personally, we have not well, as a side note, we have not received anything at all that states that it is safe for us to gather in public meeting areas or in meeting areas other than groups of 10. So we're going to continue on for the foreseeable future until we receive other directions that we are going to continue on with the Zoom meetings. However, our first to do, I think, was the finance committee, so we can have a better understanding for workshops and things like that. I will open it up to Steve, the board, as to this topic.
And Vanessa, I think what you guys discussed last Friday was trying to get back, instead of doing a weekly update, of taking these Friday meetings and turning them back into workshops where you can start working through some of your business issues. I know that Susanna's brought to our attention, has asked about, and sent an email yesterday to the board about going to the next phase when it comes to the covenants process and what the board wants to do when the timing for that. So I would recommend that next Friday we start doing workshops again, and we workshop not only the voting to reopen the gym, but we workshop the covenant process and where we are today and how we want to move forward with covenants.
Thank you, Steve. Now, I guess my next question is, we had originally scheduled workshop dates. Do we want to not do our Friday calls and resume to workshop dates that have previously been voted upon, or do we want to stick with our Fridays? So I'll open this up to the board as to how we want to move forward on this.
Hey, this is Kevin. I'll be honest, I think the Friday calls have been pretty good. It kind of has helped engagement, of course, both of using Zoom and almost making things shorter in a way. If we can go ahead and keep Friday calls, but keep them to an hour, I'm comfortable, but I'll be flexible with whatever I'm good with.
Anyone? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is Brian. I would be happy. I will sway to the people who are not retired and say if we need to change it for them, I will gladly change it. But I would be happy staying with the Fridays. I'd be happy staying with an hour, hour and a half max. And I would like us to get to where we have a brief management update up front, and then we have one or two real topics. We've talked about finance, we've talked about covenants. There are other things going, like, like working capital projects. Are we going to do them, not do them, and other things like that. So I want to see us get to meat and potatoes. And the structure I'm very flexible on, but the Fridays I think are working.
Thank you, Brian. Diana, I'll open it up to you.
Yeah, I agree. I love the Friday mornings. First of all, they work personally for me very well. And I do think we need to start doing the deep dive into the topics that Brian just said. So I'm perfectly fine with that. And it's quick. We get participation, and I think we should stick with the Friday mornings.
Yeah, I love the participation on this. I think part of it is that people are home, but I also think it's because the Zoom call makes it much easier, and it doesn't seem to interrupt everybody's flow. So I will open this up again to anybody else. Debbie, David, Marianne.
I agree with Brian's point. I mean, I think we need to start getting into a lot of the business that we had set out to do back in March. Start getting into deep dives on topics. And Fridays
Marianne?
are fine. Whatever the timeline is fine.
Fridays are
David.
fantastic for me. And I think I agree we need to get into those deeper dives and that can be managed on the agenda. But having, this may sound odd, but having more frequent, every Friday, an hour to an hour and a half is actually better for my schedule than these 2 and 3 hour blocks that we have at workshops.
Thank you, Marianne.
So
I agree.
I'm in
Anyone
favor
else?
of continuing.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else
Brian
from the
has a
board, and
point.
then I'll open it up to the residents. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're mute. There you go.
I would recommend either 75 minutes or 90 minutes, because I think we have to, if we're going to do it once a week, we need Steve to start for 10 minutes and say, life is great, or you really need to be aware of this one item. And then if you have 1 or 2 topics that take a half hour to 45 minutes, you've chewed up all your time. And then I'd like us to be very strict. When we get to the deadline, we kill it. And if we got an hour and 15 minutes, or if we got 75 or 90 minutes and we're 60 minutes in, we can't start the next topic, we just kill it and say it rolls over. But if we do one every week, we can push the agenda item over and we can prioritize properly.
Yes.
Yep.
And Vanessa, before you take resident feedback, I just want to add, from management perspective, Friday mornings work really well for us also. And then one more, we need to add in June a very high level of service budget conversation also, because we're at the beginning of budget season starting next month. So we need to make sure we include that in one of our topics to talk about.
Perfect. Brian, before we go on, you want to address what you've been doing so far with regards to the Finance Committee? You're on mute.
Sure. We have now had 3 applications for the Finance Committee. I think all 3 of them look good. I don't remember, Susan, if it's on the agenda for this Wednesday or not, but if it's not,
it is.
Change the agenda and put it there. I'd like to get those 3 people approved. Debbie's part of the process on the board along with me. We'd have 5 people. And then I'd like to start having meetings in June. I mean, it'll be my intention not to Zoom it as much as possible. We can take a room and we can set themselves all 10 feet apart if we need to. But I like using flip charts and stuff like that so we can talk about the big picture. And because Steve talked about the budget, but the Finance Committee has got a lot of things it needs to start talking about, because my personal belief is 2020 and 2021 will present challenges.
I agree with you, Brian. My only comment with that is I would still like the public be able to, just like any other workshop. So we would have to, if we could incorporate maybe one of the staff members to actually do a Zoom, and that way we can at least make sure it's facilitated, and just like we would have a recording or things like that. I would love to have I would love to be able to have the community engagement if necessary.
I think every single person in the meeting can bring their iPad and have it on a Zoom basis, but then, you know, you can talk, you can use a flip chart, but you can still get Zoom, and public is welcome to all our meetings for all committees, so this one would be no different.
Perfect, thank you.
And Vanessa, Patrick and I have been talking a little bit about what technology looks like to do Zoom, and it may be to where board members are assigned community iPads, and then when your term ends, you return them back. So we're looking at a couple different options to where pretty much everything we do can be Zoom moving forward.
Great, thank you. Any other comments before I open it up to, from the board, before I open it up to public?
Just, Steve, just on that, on the technology, sometimes it's hard to hear people. So that's why and I don't know if my voice has been hard to hear, but I am using wired headphones now, you know, just to make sure it's not a bouncing in the room and so forth. So I think we need to look at clear, crisp communication. Sometimes there's distances that people are from their own microphone, or it's a old computer. I mean, this computer I have is 11 years old. So who knows what the quality is, but just to maximize our interaction, whatever. So that's some problem solving as we move forward to this as a routine platform.
Thank you, David. Brian?
Yeah, David's point is interesting and valid. I've had people tell me this week they love the Zoom and ask me that they want the board to continue with this long term. So, and I think the board's already agreed to that. So if we need to do things, I mean, I didn't know about the community iPad, but you know,
I don't either.
if you do things with a headphone or a speaker or anything like that to make it crisper, then we should consider it, because I think it's something that we should just make part of life going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick and I are just throwing out options. I think there can be an iPad in front of everybody, and you could still be in a room together, and you could still be Zooming and live broadcast at the same time. I think from the audio standpoint, it's a best practice from Zoom to have either wireless or hard plugged in headphones when you're on these conference calls. I think it's always going to be lower audio when you're trying to speak into your speaker of your computer or your iPad. So I think that's what fixes that. So if we move in that direction, and ultimately this would be a CROA board decision, but if we want to make that investment from the community standpoint to where you have headphones and an iPad or something along those lines,
Whatever
it's something that we're looking into.
And also, this is not just for the live event, but for playback for the future, for residents who can't sign on at whatever the time of the meeting is, just so that so that's a good quality recording.
Right, and I think most residents would rather watch it on Zoom than watch it on the live streaming, because on Zoom you can chat, you can interact, you can raise your hand, those types of things. Live streaming, you can't communicate at all.
Agreed. Thank you. Any other board comments?
While on the Zoom topic, I'm actually going to go ahead and bring up a chat box item that was over in here. I don't know if everybody agrees with this. Just my perception seems to be other meetings, like committee meetings and things like that, we might be able to do a better job at pushing the information to access for Zoom meetings to the community, similar to the way that we do for other CROA items. Might be great to get more participation in that.
Brian, go ahead.
I very much agree with Kevin. I see where Eileen has one here too, but I mean, there's a lot of times I don't go to a committee meeting that I think might be interesting just because it takes up time that I would Zoom it if I could sit here and multitask. So I would love to see us make this standard across the board.
I do know that our ARC meeting we're doing via Zoom. And then we have, because it's ARC, we keep everybody muted. Jessica's the one that was actually doing it this past week, and you go into a little waiting room. So you're not in the middle of somebody's presentation. And then she asks who you are and identifies and actually types out what address if you're calling in for that, or obviously it is public. So you can just say, I'm just here to listen. So Jessica's actually been facilitating that as a waiting room situation for safety and security, making sure it's just residents that are dialing in. So that was, that's worked very well, at least with ARC, and we've done 3 meetings now via Zoom.
It's live action TV. It's way better than Tiger King.
I don't know. For somebody who's never
Yes.
watched Tiger King, I can't speak for that one. So,
Steve, that was
Oh, I
recorded,
haven't.
Steve.
Just
That was
don't.
okay, on that note, Steve, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Please don't address Tiger King. That's my only request.
It's recorded.
Any public comment, raise hands, or however, I'll have some help from. Okay, public comment seems to be very positive, at least via chat. Zoom works well. No tech issues, things like that have been the feedback. So going forward, I think the direction, the general consensus of the board is, making sure that your community, or excuse me, your committee meetings and the such are all going to be with Zoom links. When you do your public notices, make sure that it's easy to click on, and just click a link for Zoom. I know I had some technical issues, but I actually think it was my computer that was the problem and not the link. So but it was resolved very quickly by staff. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, David.
Just another comment. As we move forward, I know we're talking about Zoom, but as we move forward, I do look forward to the day that we are face to face again. And I'm sure that along that route, we will have some blended, and even if you will, 2 years from now, and it may be majority face to face, but we still have some recording or some Zoom access. But so just thinking about the blended meeting. So ARC might be 3/4 face to face and 1/4 with Zoom. So just looking at that technology, that capability, and then the feasibility for that recording. So if you have 5 people in a room, that gets recorded, plus the 1 or 2 people, if you will, on Zoom, all of that gets blended. And I do not know, that's a Patrick question.
Yeah, and David,
it
that's
doesn't
what,
have to be addressed today, but just.
yeah, no, Patrick, that's what Patrick is looking at. And
Okay.
we talked a little bit about it last week. I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't have everybody, if you're in a room, still be on a laptop. In fact, I think it could possibly take over for the live streaming to have, because it is live streaming essentially, and it's all being recorded. It's all held up online. So we're looking at that option to see if you can still do that. I don't think that there's a problem if you're sitting 6 feet or 10 feet away from me and you're Zooming too. As long as we have headphones in, I think that it will work out the way it's supposed to. So we'll continue looking at that, and as we get closer to getting back in person, we'll be running some tests and things like that.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you. And just
Good.
as a side note, I think back to my comment about just making sure that all of the links actually are live wherever we post them would be helpful. And I know that's hard to chase that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think once we get into a routine that this is the new normal, I think it'll make it much easier and seamless. Right now, we're all still working things through. Go ahead, Brian.
Do we, and this is in the dumb question category, do we need to do a motion or anything? I mean, I haven't heard any board members saying this is a bad idea. So if everybody agrees, at some point, can we just, whether it's this Wednesday board meeting or next Friday or something, say charge, and the board wants this to be a policy to go forward, both for board meetings, workshops, and committee meetings, in my opinion, and charge management to get us the rest of the way up that hill over 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever an appropriate time period is.
Any costs, any costs that are incurred with this, we'll bring them back to the board to be voted on, especially if it's over the $4,999 spending threshold that the executive director has. But we'll continue to, as Patrick and I talk through what we think works best for doing this, we'll continue bringing that back to you guys on a regular basis, and then we'll get it approved for any expenditures that are needed.
But if it increases participation of the community as a whole, if it eventually replaces the streaming and all the issues we've had with that, and makes it easier for board members and everybody wherever they're at to participate. I mean, I know Kevin travels with his job, he could do it from New York or pick a place and stuff like that. The benefits here are worth the cost.
Yep, I agree.
Totally agree. And so as we move forward, then I think it's fine to not do an official movement until to just continue on as we've been doing. If we need an official vote on something, Steve, you'll let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I would like, before we end this meeting today, just to make sure that that the board's okay with talking about covenants next Friday, or if you'd like to keep it as is for a little bit while longer.
It's a workshop item.
Yes,
Workshop
next Friday
item.
as a workshop item.
Yeah.
Board,
I
are we
am.
good with that as a workshop item?
I am.
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm. good.
Yes.
Kevin, Diana, Kevin, everybody else good?
I am as well.
Yes, yep.
So instead of
Debbie is
responding,
perfect.
instead of responding to Susanna's email about the lights by email, we'll just wait and discuss it next Friday.
That's
I
perfect.
think we can let the
Well,
lights go. You?
I'm sorry.
Go
you
ahead,
broke
Debbie,
up
what were you
there.
saying?
I said, I think we can let the lights go. I mean, that was just a temporary thing. I think people have found other ways to participate in things. I don't think we need to extend the lights, do we?
Strictly up to the board. I mean, at this point, we just need some direction of when do you want us to start asking people to take them down or not?
Why don't we wait? Are you
No.
good with waiting till, are we good with
Wait.
waiting till Friday to actually
Yeah,
have that
I think it's,
conversation, board?
I think it's completely feasible, and we can advertise that we'll be talking about covenants process next Friday.
Okay, perfect.
Sounds good.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's a
Go ahead.
larger, it's a larger discussion on covenants, as I
It
understand.
is.
Yeah.
It is, but that was a variance
Okay.
though that we
No, I understand.
allowed just
Right.
because of this. But yeah, we will start talking about
So-
our phase 2, phase 3, that kind of stuff.
So it's going to be at a low level, but the main intent of the workshop was at a higher level
Yes.
on covenants. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Just one thing, as we are talking about future, I'm sorry, we're not even on the next one, future meeting discussions. I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Actually, we
That's something
are.
else.
That's all part of it.
Oh, we are.
You're
Okay,
good.
perfect.
You're good. Go for it.
Perfect. So one suggestion that I was just kind of thinking about as we look at the next 3 months or so, with Steve stepping into his new role, Neil coming into the community, is it possible to go ahead and maybe do a housekeeping, for lack of a better term, and go ahead and review anything that might be open that needs to be cleaned up, so that way Neil can have as clean of a slate as possible when he comes into the community? Obviously, Steve's going to be around to assist and back up and all that stuff, but you know, the famous line is Steve goes ahead and wins the lottery. Well, we're not going to be able to get in touch with him. He'll change that phone number real quick, and I don't blame him.
I'm gonna be asking
if we
Kevin
can
the
go
best
ahead.
vacation spots.
There you go. But that's going to be my one main item if we can focus on over the next 2 months as well.
Yeah, and Kevin, do you mind? I'll address that real quick. When Neil comes on, I have a complete listing of training. Part of that is going over past strategic plans, going over the weekly updates that I was providing on the projects that we were doing. And then I think as you guys move forward, one of your, and probably is going to need to be more than an hour and a half, but one of your workshops is to start talking about strategic planning. All the projects that you work on over the next year, 2 years, 5 years should all be stemmed from your strategic planning, your strategic focus. So I think that's a very high priority to get that meeting going. And that essentially does put Neil on a clean slate. And I fully imagine that the ongoing projects that are put on hold will become part of that strategic plan.
Thank you. And I guess to follow up, and I'll open this up to everybody else too. I think to follow up, just maybe if there's something, Kevin, that you have in mind that you wanted to address, maybe start email, and then we can go ahead and just add to it, and then we can actually bring that all at once, and we can kind of go through it. Okay, well, this can be on this Friday, this can be on this Friday, if there's any cleanup details. Is that reasonable?
I think that's reasonable. I can't think of specific items. I just don't want Neil or a future board to go ahead and be surprised because historical knowledge is almost, you know, fades away over time.
Well, and yeah, and all the projects that we have, it's all documented. It's either documented in each department has individual work plans or in overall priority action lists that I have. So we have everything in writing. So if I somehow disappear, it's all still on paper.
Perfect. And then we do have a question. We do have a quick question. I see Susan has a text in response to what's going on, but we did get a question regarding just recreation projects. My personal opinion with regards to recreation projects, and I'll open this up, is we just really want to make sure that we have our finance committee all set up, so we have a better sense of how we are financially. what we do and don't have for projects. That will not impact how we prioritize our projects, perhaps. But I think we need to at least have a starting place with our finance committee. I'll open this up to the board.
And Vanessa, can I just add to that real quick too? Every project that we have has a quote to it, a proposal for it. So they're all at that stage where when the board decides that we have a better understanding what the financial impact from the COVID-19 looks like, when we're ready to go, we can start moving forward. And it's all about prioritization and how much money you have versus how much you have to put out for these projects. But everything is at the stage of it's been looked at. We've got the proposals out, and we've got packages back in, so we know what things are going to cost. Now, some of those may change because proposals only last for a certain amount of time, so we may have to go ask for a refresher. But those projects have all been taken to that level.
Brian?
Maybe we get the finance committee organized and everything, but I mean, we've kind of said this in passing, but I'll say it even more bluntly now. We have put facilities projects like pickleball and everything on hold because while our financial position is strong today, we see cracks in the foundation all over the place. And I'm just being painfully honest, and I think 2021's budget will be much harder than 2020's budget. If you talk about pickleball, we got 2 quotes. Both of them were between $1 million and $1.5 million because of issues with drainage, retention ponds, and stuff like that. So that just makes it a complete non-starter. Adult sports out on East Lawn, we've got 2 quotes between $150,000 and $200,000. That just came in at a tremendous amount more than we were thinking. Artisan Playground, we have not talked about at all. And, I'm not sure when we get to talking about playgrounds since we're not even using playgrounds. And we've talked about Stetson and the community center type stuff like that. And it may be that one of our best options right now is Stetson and turning 851 into a community center because of timing of the reality of the world we're in today. So, we'll have the finance committee, we'll have the board conversations. If any board member thinks I'm nuts, please say so now. But the world just flipped upside down on us in the last 8 to 10 weeks. And I think it would be terribly reticent of us as a board to believe that we're going to have a V recovery. We're going to be back to business as usual in August. And I'm just trying to be very honest on Zoom in front of the community, because I've had a few people say, where do these things stand? And that's where I believe we're really at.
Brian,
I'll open this up for anybody else. Go ahead. Was that you, Debbie?
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate that. I echo that. I think we have to look at the concerns for the future first, and things have changed dramatically. So I appreciate your supporting that. Thank you.
Any other board comments? I think it's I'll make one quick comment. Just because right now people may not be able to pay their assessments and things like that, but just because they can't pay it now doesn't mean we won't get the money in the future. So I think it's important that we recognize that although we have to understand even some of the legislation that's going through. They're not saying you don't have to pay your assessments. They're saying you just have a little more time to do it. So I think it's important that we don't all of a sudden say, hey, all this money that we've been expecting, we're not getting. Now, there may be some situations where that may happen, but I can assure you that the individual that gets to that extreme, the least of their concerns are going to be our assessments. They're going to have other financial implications. So it is just a delay of funds, right, which is to Brian's point, right? We're not talking about not doing the projects. We're talking about perhaps this is something we want to do in the future when we have a better understanding, when we understand our cash flow situations. Any other board members? Perfect. So on that note, future meeting conversations, I think we're just, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but these are just things that as we get more direction from CDC, the governor, Osceola County, those are things that we will be reopening at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, we won't bring these back up on the agenda until we get some some more guidance from the governor's office, and then as those phase 2, phase 3 restrictions are lifted, and then again, like you mentioned, if CDC has any guidelines to for best practices for reopening these facilities, we'll look at those then. But we just left those on there so we remembered to address them coming up in the future. But for next week, we'll do the gym reopening vote, and then we'll move into the covenant process in that conversation.
Perfect. Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah, because I mean, I respect what David has been saying, and I think 3A, B, C, D are extremely difficult, if not impossible, if you respect what's been coming out of the CDC and watching everything. We had the earlier conversations where we said JR would make sure we don't have money commitments that can't be undone at this point in time. I personally have heard nothing that makes me think we're going to have the fall events, and I suspect we'll end up in some conversation about what the heck do we do during Halloween evening, even about not flooding the town with 10,000 people. So I think our challenges are different unless there's a radical health change that occurs over the next 2 months or something. And the reality, because I've seen where Kissimmee canceled their fireworks and other people are canceling things right and left. And my mom, you know, in Illinois, everything's getting canceled and stuff like that, because these things have all got such lead times that it makes it impossible to sit here and have hope. We all have hope, but you know, we're darn near halfway through the year. So I would basically like to see us here. I think when 3A, B, C, and D show up on an agenda, people think they could happen, they can happen. I'm personally, and I'm probably one of the more willing to open people on the entire board, think those 4 items are not smart right now.
Yeah, and management is not recommending opening any of those facilities at this point in time, or any of the events. But I believe on Wednesday, we do have an agenda item that discusses the fall events, and JR will be prepared to talk about what kind of conversations the special events committees had, and then what deadlines do we need to cancel. I think we're probably talking closer to end of August, September to cancel fall events. So just like no rush to vote for opening the gym today, I would say no rush to cancel those things just yet.
Very good. I see Dr. Jerry Barr has chimed in. Did you want to add anything to those comments, Jerry? You're muted. Sorry.
Yes, since you asked me, I wish there was some other medical professional also that would chime in, but I guess I may be the only one. The chance of being able to have a fall event where you have loads of people together is very, very unlikely. I think in general, what the board and the community and management has been doing is terrific. We ought to go on those same lines, being extraordinarily careful and encouraging social distancing and masks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Barr. Any other comments, questions from the board, residents? I don't see any hands up. Anybody else?
Vanessa, going back to Kevin's point from, I don't know, 15 minutes ago, will part of our agenda next Friday, or maybe the following Friday, is to be looking at the larger listing of potential workshop topics? I know Brian brought up, you know, the issue of the funding of amenities, different options. But we just need to prioritize. So we have covenants next week. Then what? What are the priorities for June and then July? And I know Steve also brought up we have budget, but that's probably not a Friday thing. But that's to get onto our radar screen and our thinking. So just that sort of large scale planning for topics.
Here's a question on how to handle that, Steve. If Susan can get us a list of all the ones that she's got, because she has a list going, if she could just send that to the board first, we can go ahead and have it prioritized, still bring it up at a meeting so that everybody's aware of what's on our list, but maybe we can help to prioritize that and then have some consensus. If not next Friday, perhaps the following Friday.
She and you were on the same page because she was typing that text to us
Yes.
at the same
Yeah.
time as you were saying it, Vanessa. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Susan's all over that, so she'll send that out.
Thank you,
and then
Susan.
if there's time at the end of Friday's meeting, we can certainly next Friday's meeting, you guys, you'll have it for the next week, and then you guys can vote on the prioritization next Friday.
And if not next Friday, the following Friday is fine too. So wherever we have time. But we definitely need to get this, make sure that we're resuming to everybody, to the whole board's comment. How do we resume to our new normal now? Make sure that we aren't falling behind. So just to confirm, before we move on, we have next week, we have a board meeting on Wednesday. If we could make sure that the links are live on all of our postings, that would be great. And then our weekly board, or just to clarify, our Wednesday is at 6 p.m. start time. It's not during the day. It's a 6 p.m. our usual board meeting time. And then our next week Friday morning call will be at 10 a.m. Before we move on, is there any board comment? Or before we end, I should say, is there any board comment?
Just a question for JR, or if he's on. Tomorrow is the Saturday Memorial Day ceremony. I recall a note that there was going to be a Facebook live feed. Is that going to be posted, or has it been posted? Maybe it's in the Friday Flash.
It has been posted, and when the flash goes out today, it'll be there as well. So fingers crossed, as long as we have no issues, we will be streaming it through our Facebook page.
Good. Yeah, I looked, I guess it was 2 days ago. I looked online and did not see it in the calendar, but maybe you've added that since then. I saw the event, but not the Facebook piece, but that'll be good to.
Yeah, well, we actually posted it on Facebook and our social media channels earlier in the week.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else? And did I see any other board comments?
Yeah, one question, Vanessa. The Friday meetings, we said we were going to continue them. Is that for how long? Is that through August 31st? I mean, we said we just want to keep them. So is this something we plan for the entire summer and then figure out where we're at? Just a procedure question.
I think procedurally, let's plan. I think just for logistics, I don't think that there's anyone right now that is going to be, we're not going to have summer camps. We're not doing any of this. We're not doing gatherings. I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm comfortable with saying through August 31st. I think that's a 31, so 30 or 31 anyway. If through the end of August or September 1, we can then reevaluate maybe towards the last 2 meetings of August, our Friday calls, we can then have better discussions. We'll have more information from CDC, and then we can talk about how we want to resume our usual workshop facilitation. I'll open that comment to the board.
Vanessa, I think logic would say that if the predictive models are the fall, it's going to be spiked again and you're going to have another outbreak, then you're probably looking further than August, but I think it's safe to assume August as of now.
At least to hold off our conversations until the end of August.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to cancel all your fall events, I would count on not meeting in person for the rest of the year too, which is why all of it's predictive right now. So we might as well wait and see how things go through the summer and then make the final decision then.
And then the only thing I would ask is if that's the case, which I'm perfectly fine with, then can we just have Laura and Patrick coordinate so we get the invitations out, cancel the other stuff, keep the board meetings the way we would, and then it's on our calendars. That's all I really care about.
That's perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure we get that done.
And if something miraculously changes, we can always pull back.
That would be
and let's hope for that.
Wouldn't that be a nice problem?
That's what we want.
Yeah. Yes, it's easier to pull back. I agree.
Yeah. So let's schedule
and
it.
Just to Dan's comment too, yeah, we are not planning on committing any money to any future events until we have a better idea of what's going on. So yes, we agree with you, Dan.
Yeah, but Vanessa, let me just say the contracts for the fall events were all signed way before the pandemic. So we have until around end of August, early September to decide whether to cancel those or not.
Perfect. Any other board comments? Before we finish up, do I have any community comments that we need to address? I'll open this up. Help me out, board, with anybody that has their hand raised or anything like that.
I don't see any raised.
I don't either. So on that note, do we have any other business we need to discuss, Steve? Are we good?
I think we're good. Just everyone have a great, safe Memorial Day weekend.
Perfect. Us too.
Go easy on them.
Hurricane. We just got a question. Hurricane preparedness.
Yeah, Dr. Barr asked that question last week too. We have a proven hurricane model. In fact, the model was implemented when we had the largest recorded Category 5 in the Atlantic Ocean that was plowing down on us back in 2017. So I'm not concerned at all with the hurricane plan. It's updated. It's ready to go. It begins when forecasts of 96 hours out, 72 hours, 48, 24. I mean, we have a plan that works really well.
Steve, 2 questions on that plan. Have you looked at that in the realm of physical distancing? And then the other part is from the county collaboration. I know that they have provided sand before and sandbags. Will any of that be changed in this pandemic world and physical distancing?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. The Celebration is a sandbag site, and I imagine it'll continue being a sandbag site. There will be, I'm sure, social distancing and mask and everything else involved with that sandbagging site. But we have a pretty good system in place with people staying in their cars. It would just be more of filling the bags. And when it comes to breaking down and setting back up our facilities, all of that can be done with social distancing and the proper hygiene techniques. So again, I'm not concerned just because there's the COVID-19 virus out there on what it would take to get the facilities ready for a hurricane.
As one who has helped fill sandbags, we will want to do a better job of education, because often people expect bags to be loaded in their car and all they do is sit there, but it's only volunteers who come and fill the bags. And you know, the model should be, you fill bags and then put them in your car. So we just need to work that through.
But the sandbag location sites are throughout all of Osceola County, and that's right. Osceola County rules how they do them. Actually, Celebration community is blessed because we have so many great volunteers in this community that go out and fill those bags.
Yeah, so
I think somebody needs to mute. I was just gonna say, you know, in most locations, you're 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour wait to get your sandbags, because the county does not fill bags. The residents here go out there and do that as a kind gesture to help each other out.
Exactly.
And just to make sure that we have publicly alerted here, all the equipment and everything that is in, we have practiced it. Mike, our new operations manager, understands and has experience with hurricanes.
Absolutely.
So we have a tried and true staff, and equipment has all been tested and ready to go.
Yeah, Mike just recently went through one of the largest hurricanes to hit the Panhandle with Hurricane Michael, so he's well aware of how this is working. And I've been doing this since 2004 when the 3 hurricanes hit in Seminole County and throughout Central Florida.
Well, maybe we won't have one this year.
Let's hope so.
I hope.
Sorry, I'm talking over my mute. On that note, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Have a terrific Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. 31 people online. I love it. Thank you all.
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.